Davis, and I read, write, and roller skate in Los Angeles. Welcome to This Writer's Life, where we peek into process. This episode is all about comparisons and how you can use comparisons when you're describing something in your writing. A comparison is, of course, when you compare one thing to another. If you're describing something in your writing, a really great way to make it come alive is to compare it to something else. So the trick is to pick something that's really different, and so it's kind of an interesting comparison, but also something that has at least one thing in common that you're comparing. And that thing in common usually has to do with the senses: sound, or smell, or look, or taste, or feel. For example, a really common one might be if I say my toes are ice cubes. And you know that two things are being compared, my toes and ice cubes, and you know that the thing they have in common is that they're both cold. You also know that I'm not speaking literally, right? My toes aren't actually ice cubes. I'm speaking figuratively. And when you speak figuratively, that means that you're speaking with a figure of speech or with your imagination. And that's a really neat thing to do with comparisons that then feel inventive and captivating. I'm going to read a really wonderful example of comparisons, and that is from The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros. The second section or vignette is called Hairs, and in it Esperanza, who's the narrator of The House on Mango Street, is describing the hair in her family, and she uses a bunch of different comparisons. As I read, you can just see what you notice, and you might think especially about the ones you notice about her mother's hair, because we'll focus on those in just a minute. So this is called Hairs. Everybody in our family has different hair. My papa's hair is like a broom all up in the air. And me, my hair is lazy. It never obeys barrettes or bands. Carlos's hair is thick and straight. He doesn't need to comb it. Nenny's hair is slippery, slides out of your hand. And Kiki, who is the youngest, has hair like fur. But my mother's hair like little rosettes, like little candy circles, all curly and pretty because she pinned it in pin curls all day. Sweet to put your nose into when she is holding you and you feel safe, is the warm smell of bread before you bake it. It's the smell when she makes room for you on her side of the bed, still warm with her skin, and you sleep near her, the rain outside falling and Papa snoring, the rain, and Mama's hair that smells like bread. You could pause the video and think about or discuss with others which of these comparisons was really live in your mind as you heard it. And I'll focus on a couple about her mother's hair. One of them is when she says, my mother's hair like little candy circles. So the two things being compared are her mother's hair and little candy circles, and they have in common how they look. They're round, right? They're curls. And another one is when she says, my mother's hair is the warm smell of bread. So the two things being compared there are her mother's hair and the smell of bread. And you can think about how comparisons hold with them associations. What do you associate with the smell of bread? I think about warmth and comfort and maybe about home. You just get that sort of cozy feeling and that positive feeling of how she feels about her mother and her mother's hair. There are two types of comparisons, which you've probably heard before, similes and metaphors. In a simile, the word like or as is usually used. And in a metaphor, you're going to hear is or was. So one thing becomes another thing, and so then it's a little bit stronger. In these examples from The House on Mango Street, my mama's hair like little candy circles, is that a simile or metaphor? It's a simile. And if you were to make it into a metaphor, it would be my mama's hair is little candy circles, or was little candy circles. And how about with my mama's hair that smells like bread? Is that a simile or metaphor? A simile, right? And to make it into a metaphor, it would be my mama's hair that is the smell of bread. Now it's your turn to write a comparison. The same way Esperanza uses comparisons to describe hair, I think it would be really great if you use one to describe your own hair. So stick to your own, not anyone else's. And this is a way that you can, by writing a descriptive comparison, celebrate your hair, own it, notice what it's like, and be really imaginative and creative in your description of it. You could focus on the shape, the texture, the length of your hair. You could think about an adjective that you would use to describe it, and is there another thing that you would also describe using that same descriptive adjective? You can be as specific as possible to make this really rich and come alive. If your hair is curly, is it curly like an old-fashioned telephone cord? Is it curly like the tendrils of a very specific plant that you know? Be as specific as possible in writing this comparison that describes and celebrates your hair. You'll find a PDF in the show notes as well that will help guide you through this and give you a little refresher about similes and metaphors. Thank you for spending this time with me here on This Writer's Life. I hope that you'll subscribe so you can join me for future episodes. And if you're a parent or educator, check out my website where you can sign up for my newsletter, and that way a new episode will be delivered right to your inbox, as well as a link to a PDF that corresponds to the episode if there is one.
Hi, my name is Armand Baltazar. I am the author and illustrator behind the illustrated middle grade series Timeless, Diego and the Rangers of the Vastlantic. Now, before I was illustrating Timeless, I did a lot of things. In fact, in my career for the last 20 years, I've been a visual storyteller, helping filmmakers tell their stories in animated features. Working for companies like DreamWorks and Disney and Pixar, I created my own adventure story and decided to tell that story in a book. Now, I wanted to share with you some advice about one of the hardest things I find is creating characters and making them real. And I think that the more time that you can spend making the characters as real as you can in your imagination, the easier it becomes to write what they say, write what they do, write what they feel and what they think. One of the things I like to do to help me do that is to draw inspiration. And because I've been an artist as well as a writer, I like using visuals to do that. So if you look over here on my desk, what you'll see is I like a lot of times to carry pictures or show pictures of who the characters are or what they're like, reflecting their personality and moods. Now for Timeless, the main character was based on my son, so I had a lot of wonderful photographs to sort of refer to when I was thinking about what the fictional character would do in situations. After that, and alongside, I would do drawings. I would do drawings of Diego having fun, of Diego going on adventures, or being mischievous. I would draw other characters in the story, like little robots that would go along, or even Lucy, one of his friends in the story who goes on these adventures with him. Sometimes I would even have figurines and statues of the characters on my table, alongside where I would write and these characters and help bring them to life. And the thing is, it's hard to sort of create something, to create people that exist in your mind for your wonderful stories. And so I find in using things like drawings and pictures and putting them up all over your walls as you write helps you to understand who they are. And even sometimes when you're doing the drawing, while you're drawing, a lot of times you're thinking about what this character would be doing. Or if you're doing a drawing of them being really sad, you're thinking about what made them sad or how they would react. And when you draw another character, you start to understand the differences between the two. This is something that really helps me, and I hope it really helps you. Thanks for watching.